Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Donald Trump is back at it again, crashing markets. If you look at the S&P, it is literally a straight line down. I mean, after all, they say stocks take the escalator up and the elevator down, and you are seeing that front and center today. Now, what Donald Trump said, I actually think the fall in markets today makes a lot of sense. Like, stocks should have fallen a lot based on what Trump said. So I'm going to share what he said, all of the news today, and just how impactful or important this could be. I mean, I hate to say it, but we are back in Trump's market. Any headlines we get from this point forward are going to cause volatility for stocks, up or down, depending on what path ahead Trump decides to take. And if Trump wants to get destructive, he could cause a lot of damage. So in this video, we'll also discuss, like, am I hedging? Do I think it's a good time to hedge? Am I selling out here? Am I reducing exposure here? What am I buying in spite of this new turbulent market that we are back into? So hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are ready. Oh, by the way, come join the trading community if you have not done so already. During times of volatility like this, you want to be with a group of experienced traders, okay, and investors. Like back, in April when we had this 20% crash, our portfolios more than doubled, tripled because of this decline. If something like that happens again, we will be taking full advantage of it. And as well as that, hedging for the downside. So link down below in the description of this video if you want to come join us there. But with that said, let's get into what in the world Donald Trump said today to cause the markets to panic. Okay, so this one really came out of left field here. Like, normally before Trump pulls out the bazooka, we start to hear relations are going bad or something's a problem. Trump doesn't like something. Yeah, no, this time it was just out of left field and literally came out of nowhere. So if you're beating yourself up because you didn't see this one coming, I didn't see this one coming either. Nobody's seen this one coming. And that's why, again, when you look at the markets, it is a straight line down. It does not look good. What Trump said here today, this morning, to ruin your Friday, is, quote, "Some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of. If it's not manufacturing in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would, quote unquote, clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We have been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I have always felt that they've been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I have been proven right. There is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position, a rather sinister and hostile move, to say the least. But the U.S. has monopoly positions also, much stronger and much far reaching than China's. I have just not chosen to use them, and there was never a reason for me to do so, until now. The letter they sent is many pages long and details with great specificity each and every element that they want to withhold from other nations. Things that were routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to President Xi because there was no reason to do so. This was a real surprise, not only to me, but to all of the leaders of the free world. I was to meet President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was the day that, after 3,000 years of bedlam and fighting, there is peace in the Middle East. I wonder if that timing was coincidental. Depending on what China says about the hostile order that they have just put out, I will be forced as president of the United States of America to financially counter their move. For every element that they have been able to monopolize, we have two. I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps, as with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, though potentially painful, it will be a very good thing in the end for the USA. Notice, he says, ultimately, though potentially painful, it will be a very good thing in the end for the USA. One of the policies that we are calculating at this moment is a massive increase of tariffs on Chinese products coming into the United States of America. There are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious consideration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So even Trump himself says, hey, look, if we have to go through with some of these retaliatory measures, it's gonna be painful. Let me put that into English. You're gonna have a recession if Trump goes through with this. Fuck, man. Like, just when you thought we were gonna be okay. I'll tell you now, I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. The U.S. economy cannot handle a trade embargo with China. You're talking a severe recession. So I guess the time has come to make sure you are prepared for that in the worst case scenario, especially with the labor market in such a weak place. It's even reported today that thousands of government layoffs are starting because of the government being shut down. But even deeper than that, the private sector is just not doing so great. So you have, this weakness in the broader markets, and now you're potentially putting on some, pressures in trade. And it's going to be, this is a shock event. If there were to be a massive increase in tariffs and essentially a trade embargo, this would be a shock event. This would be a recession catalyst. Okay, that's the unfortunate part here. Now, does it happen? Is it time to head for the hills this second? I don't think so. But it is a time in which you got to be very vigilant and understand these things as they are developing. Because mark my words, if Trump reinstates like another 100% tariff on China and we go through a trade embargo, there will be a recession in this country. I don't know if Trump is, bluffing here or trying to get China to back down from some of their recent, changes in their, rare earths or what the ultimate deal is here, what the checkmate move is. But I do know if you have another trade embargo with China, it will turn into a recession. This economy, as I've said before, is one major shock event away from a recession. So, be prepared in your portfolio. Have as much cash as possible is the best thing that I would say here. Now, the base case is that this does not lead into some larger issue. Like if we were to put probabilities on this, maybe there's a 20% chance of another trade embargo with China. Maybe there's an 80% chance that things go back to business as usual, that China is not trying to withhold all of their minerals to the world. But the odds of a recession, the odds of some kind of calamity are rising dramatically today. And I think Wall Street knows that, again, we are one big shock event away from a recession. Recession versus not having a recession really just comes down to, do we have a catalyst? And if some of these measures are put into place, we would then have a catalyst again. So just be on the lookout. Also in the news today, the BLS that says that they will publish the September 2025 Consumer Price Index on Friday, October 24th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here you can see, according to a White House official, federal layoffs will be in the thousands. Now, this says from House GOP that the leaders won't be in next week as it's a district work period. They remain on a 20 or 48-hour notice to return. So, yeah, it doesn't look like there's any progress in getting the government funded. No big deal. At this point, we have bigger fish to fry. Now, this morning, we did get the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey that came in at 55.0. The expectation was 54.2, so that actually came in pretty good. 5-year inflation expectations came in unchanged from last month at 3.7%, missing the expected 3.6%. Consumer expectations came in at 51.2 versus estimates of 51.7. Current conditions came in at 61.0 versus expectations of 60. And 1 year ahead inflation came in at 4.6%, missing expectations of 4.5%. But markets honestly really didn't react to that. It's, again, all about Trump today. Okay, now is it time to hedge portfolios? The answer to that is potentially, okay? The answer to that is we just don't know. And I think it's really a personal decision here, as it typically always is. Like, do you want to hedge? If you want to hedge, if that makes you more comfortable, be my guest. I wouldn't blame you. Ultimately, it's your decision to come to your own conclusions. But hedging now could make some sense. Right? Because one headline for an example, I am assigning a additional 100% tariff on China. Boom. Next thing you know, recession odds skyrocket, inflation expectations skyrocket, and earnings expectations for next year plummet. Okay. That would be a really bad scenario. Now, considering what Trump said today, that wouldn't be so out of the realm of possibilities. That is something that sounds like could be coming. Vice versa. I mean, we could get a headline over this weekend that China has agreed to not withhold their rare earths, and, Trump thanks China and trade negotiations get back to where they were before, right? That is a possible outcome as well. So there's no easy answer to this. Hedge or not to hedge. It's not as clean cut like, let's say, COVID was, for an example. Like, we kind of had an idea that things were going to get worse at some point, and they ultimately did. Even April 2nd, like, we had an event. The question was, do we get smaller or bigger tariffs than expected? Now, a lot of people thought that we were going to get, smaller tariffs, or, it wouldn't be super large. It turned out to be crazy high tariffs, okay? And then things got worse from there, right? You're kind of back in no man's land territory. There's no easy or correct answer to what your path ahead should be here. I think it really comes down to what helps you sleep better at night. Remember, if you hedge, then your downside is protected. If you hedge appropriately and the right way. Well, if you hedge and things go back to normal, stocks continue to do well, you're going to miss out on some of that upside. If you don't hedge, then you're, susceptible to the downside, but you're also equally as susceptible to upside gains. That's kind of the trade-off with hedging. I think right now, the best thing for me personally is just raising as much cash as possible. Whether that's like taking an extra job, making some extra cash and then putting that in markets on the sidelines, waiting to see what happens, or selling maybe cover calls. We did a little bit of that today to raise some cash, right? Those are some of the strategies that I think fit kind of my thought process here, right? If I'm exposed to the downside, if things get really bad again, fine. I mean, I can deal with that, right? If things do get bad again, I want to be able to buy as much as possible. Like back in April, we did a lot of shopping back in April. It was a huge opportunity, right? If we get another opportunity like that, I want to be able to buy like crazy. Personally, hedging right now doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because I think the odds are better than not that Trump doesn't want a recession, that he doesn't want to crash the markets, that there's going to be a more peaceful off-ramp to this versus escalation of, trade tensions, right? I just think that's the higher probability. But again, I would say there's probably a 20% chance that we get some kind of crazy headlines over this weekend about large tariffs being put on China again. And that would be, not good, to say the very least. One way I think personally I'm going to look at hedging is by buying some of the metals companies, by buying some of the rare earth companies based in the US. We've seen today, right upon this news of what Trump said to China, those stocks went absolutely crazy. Now, they've been going crazy recently, so I think it's almost like a win-win scenario. If there's no, if the trade war dies down, boom, you're still going to benefit because the U.S. needs rare earths, right? And then that's going to be in demand, and there's going to be a lot of capital flowing into that area. If we have a trade embargo with China, there's going to be even more demand, and those stocks should do very well. So I actually think in a weird way, buying certain areas of this market could be a win-win scenario. I'm looking into that now, going to execute on some of those trades likely in the next day or two. If you guys want to see those stocks that we are potentially buying, check that link out down below in the description of today's episode. But again, I'll just circle back to what I just said. Nobody really knows what is coming next. This came totally out of left field, and this was not anyone's thought, right? I will tell you, if we have a trade embargo with China, we will most likely have a recession. That will at least give you a 20% decline from the highs, at least, okay? If we hear, whatever, Sunday or whenever, 100% tariff on China again, recession's back in play, okay? And from the all-time high, that would mean, you'd be going back to like 530, 540 on the SPY, kind of as a base case, right? It could be quite a large decline. If things go back to business as usual, we find out, China's not trying to hold the world hostage with rare earths and Trump kind of overreacted, then boom, you're back to new all-time highs most likely, right? But that's the risk. If trade negotiations and relations start to get bad from here, there is a lot of downside potential that you need to be made aware of. And I'm not going to gatekeep that information from you here on this channel, but I think ultimately you need to be ready for any situation. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? 80% of working out in the gym and seeing results is eating and your diet, right? If you're going to the gym but you're eating donuts all day, don't expect to see results, right? Same thing with trading and investing, right? 80% of how you do typically comes down to your emotional response. If you're prepared for either scenario, if you don't get super emotional when things go really good or really bad against you, right? If you react and you're making bad decisions and getting super emotional, then, like the gym, right? You're basically eating junk food as you're trying to gain muscle. It's never going to work. So right now, you want to be prepared for any outcome. And again, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to hedge, but I think personally, having as much cash as possible ready puts you in a win-win scenario where there's, again, also stocks that might do very well if the markets come down. So that's an area that I'm pretty interested in as well, as far as a potential hedge, but it really fits into the long-term narrative of, energy, AI, onshoring in America. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. I believe markets are actually going to be closed on Monday. Maybe one of you guys can verify that and double check down below in the comment section. I know there's not going to be bank deposits available on Monday, so that could make things a little bit weird, even if markets are going to be open for trading on Monday. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.